The National Institutes of Health threw open its archive of DNA and protein sequences to everybody around the world free of cost. And in 2000, they released the draft sequence of the human genome. At the time, it cost $100 million to sequence the human genome. In 2014, it was $1,000. That's 5 orders of magnitude in 14 years. So cheap DNA sequencing created a great opportunity for us.
And the big mission that we have at 1 Million Cups is we're trying to lower the barrier to becoming an entrepreneur and also just getting into the entrepreneur world. The Kauffman Foundation itself is their big thing is to try and create access to economic change for people regardless of geography, race, or gender. And that's what we're here to do as part of 1 Million Cups. And we have a certain flavor of that we try to spread all over the US. Okay, so when you go somewhere else, you could check in and see if they have 1 Million Cups and say, hey, I was with the best Albuquerque 1 Million Cups group there is, all right? Now, that many people say they were best in the state, but that's probably not true. We're probably the best in the nation. So this is, hey, we got it back there. Someone gave me a bit of hoops. I like that. So we've been doing this because we really like to solve problems. And so we have a particular flavor of that when we come, okay? So a lot of people, when they think business, they think, I push my ideas on you, right? Now, that's not what we think. What we think is, I want to solve problems, and I actually have a lot of problems, and I like to talk to people who like to solve problems. And so that's why we come here, is we talk about the problems, because we have really cool solutions for other things that create our own problems. And so the more problems we have, the more likely we're actually doing something very useful. And so that's why you come here and you pitch. Yeah, okay, I see the word pitch again. If Lisa were here, she's like, they're not pitches. And I guess they're not. But you could pitch your question.
Do you need us to get slides of?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Well, it uses the word pitch too on there. But the idea is that when you're up here, you're actually going to be you're wanting to solve your problem, right? So we talked about that, we talked about that, we talked about that, we talked about that. This is the one we're on. Okay, so, and the idea is when you're coming in, you can come in with the mentality that we really like, which is like, if I've got problems, I can talk to other people about them. And I can come back and we can see the progress as we're dealing with those problems and growing as a community. And that's what we're doing for the community and by the community. And the cool thing about problems is the more points of views you have on it, the more likely you're able to solve those problems in a different way, in a new way. I mean, we have someone here that like does MRI scans on plants. You know, you probably didn't even know that. That's like a whole different angle, right? So that we're also have different people at different levels of economic, growth. We've had, big companies present here. We've had and we've had small companies, such as this beautiful woman who sells chainmail jewelry, which you might observe on my hand. Anyway, so this is it doesn't matter what size your business is or what it's up to. You can come and present, especially if you have problems. In fact, if you in the startup community, if you launch and you're not embarrassed about your first launch, you waited too long. All right. So that goes for presentations too. And I've been embarrassed a lot.
Good job.
Yes. Thank you. In fact, oh, it went away. So we also have a great team here. We've got someone who's going to present today. And so he'll tell you about himself, so I won't bother you with him yet. And we've got Sonia, who also is, she's going to help you publish yourself. Like if you want to write a story, it could be about yourself, but it could be about somebody else. And that's really exciting. We got Lisa is in situ somewhere else and helping us with tech this morning. Oh, are you, Lisa? Yeah. Great. Good morning. And she's our lead. She's taking a break for a couple weeks. which by the way reminds me that if you want to join the team, that's a great thing to do. We are a great group of people. Got my words got mixed up again. I got a great group of people that are really trying to solve a lot of problems and make things happen. And the other thing is even the small stuff, like there was new people came in today and they helped put all the chairs up. Wasn't that cool? Now, when we're done, we can also help put things away. It makes the work a lot lighter too. And then we've got Kakoa and Oscar, and they help a lot with the tech in the background. And they also come right back here. There they are. And you can also record your family's history or someone specific in your family that you want to remember. That's a great thing they can do visually. And then Eric Rensbitmore is in Santa Fe and probably at the moment. And he does a lot of kind of community building around economics. And then there's me, and I talk about the brain. So this is the wrong direction. All right. These people also make it happen because they provide us with in-kind things. So Jason Collins Photography here, he makes us look great for at least a couple more months. And we've got Fat Pipe, which Stu is watching on the show back there. So hi, Stu. And he owns a place and has been sponsoring this for the since it started 8 years ago, or 10? 8. And then More Than Organized, she saw that we didn't have creamer and she'd really like it, so she brought it, and she continues to. She's More Than Organized. She makes you organized. Miriam, thank you. I got my teleprompter over here. This is great. Thank you. Then Foundation for Sustainable Living. He has coffee. His name is Frank. He does coffee down in Costa Rica, but he sells it somewhere else. So he sponsors our coffee. And then we've got Noventum Custom Software. Brian is a fellow that does all kinds of good software for you. And Matthew has brought the donuts for him today, so you can say hi to him. Minuteman Press made those little tents that you were able to count yourself with. And Vive Solutions often brings tea and fruit. Thank you. And if you want to find out more, you can go to this little bit.ly, bit.ly at 1 Million Cups Albuquerque. Sorry, 1MC ABQ. And follow us. Thank you. All right, so today one of our organizers is presenting, and it's a delight when Paul delivers his stories. He's always got some really interesting stuff to talk about. And so I'm excited to introduce him and hear what he has presented today.
Thank you.
Okay, go full screen.
I'm Paul Szauter, founder and chief scientific officer of EquiSeq. EquiSeq, the future of horses. EquiSeq is an equine services company for people who want better horses. EquiSeq's DNA test is a genetic screen that identifies horses at risk for a muscle wasting disease before they develop symptoms. And unlike muscle biopsy, EquiSeq's DNA test is non-invasive. We just need a hair sample. So that's what we sell, but what does it mean? This is Christine and her horse, Carlo. This photo was taken when Carlo was a youngster, and he had just won the Supreme Young Stock Champion at the big county show in Essex. And you can see Christine is beaming because she's looking forward to Carlo's brilliant career after this great start. That was not to be. This was Carlo's last show. When he was 3 years old, Carlo began to develop lameness, and Christine ran through every veterinary diagnostic test available with no clear answers. She bought EquiSeq's DNA test from our German patent licensee, Generatio, and found out that Carlo had one copy of the P4 genetic variant. That's one of the 6 variants in our panel. Carlo's condition continued to worsen. Christine has posted a video, which we'll put the link up in the chat on YouTube, and you can see Carlo's symptoms. At the end, he is struggling to stand. I'm not going to show the video, but I'm going to show you some frame grabs. You see in these frame grabs from this video, Carlo's Muscles have weakened to the point where he's having difficulty standing. He collapses and tries to get back up, collapses and tries to get back up. So Christine, in consultation with her veterinarian, decided that it was time, and Carlo was euthanized at 5 years old. He has a half sibling that was also euthanized at 5 years old with the same symptoms, and 2 other affected half siblings, all from the same dam. Christine, at the end of her video, has an ask. She says, "What I ask of you breeders is this: please test your horses before breeding. I know that more research needs to be done." I think of Christine and horse owners like her every day, and we have been doing more research. Ask me about zebrafish. Okay, so how did I arrive at this position? I got my PhD in genetics in 1980 when I was 25. I started a career as an academic Drosophila geneticist and made a career transition in 2000 to bioinformatics. In 2011, I came to New Mexico for a position at the University of New Mexico. 2014, I entered the private sector, and 2015, I started EquiSeq. During the course of my career, the National Institutes of Health has poured resources into genetic research and has started a revolution. So in the mid-90s, when the internet became widely available, the National Institutes of Health threw open its archive of DNA and protein sequences to everybody around the world free of cost. And in 2000, they released the draft sequence of the human genome. At the time, it cost $100 million to sequence the human genome. In 2014, it was $1,000. That's 5 orders of magnitude in 14 years. So cheap DNA sequencing created a great opportunity for us. So I have to tell you that all living things are related. All living things are descended from a single common ancestor, and they use the same means of encoding genetic information. And what that means, well, humans separated from mice about 80 million years ago, from horse about 100 million years ago, and from zebrafish about 375 million years ago. But if you look in all of these species at muscle, you'll see that's a basic tissue that pretty much looks the same from one organism to another. And if you pick a gene out that's expressed in muscle that encodes a muscle protein, you can find the equivalent gene in the other species. So what that means is that all research done in humans, mice, and zebrafish allows us to understand horse. So here's what we did. We took horses that had symptoms of muscle disease, and we did whole genome sequencing. That generates a really big list of variants, 4 to 6 million differences between that horse and the reference sequence for any horse you sequence. And we take the list of genes that we think might be associated with muscle disease, and we check those variants against that list. And most variants are eliminated, and some of them turn out to be important. This is how we discovered the P4 variant of a gene called myosin 3, which we believe to be damaging. Okay, I didn't do this by myself. I have an amazing team. The head count right at the moment is 13 PhD scientists, 4 veterinarians, and 4 business development specialists. The business development specialists are all newly elected members of our board, and they've come on in the last 6 months or so. So I think you can see the company is very science heavy and very light on business development and marketing. And that's because it was my opinion that we had to get the science really solid before we put a big push into marketing. So what makes a science company? There's 3 key pillars: sales, patents, and publications. So we got our first sales in 2017. That's easy for us to do because the market for genetic testing of non-human animals is not regulated. That means as soon as we develop a test, we can begin to market it. Patents are important to protect our intellectual property. We've filed 2 patents. We expect the first patent to be issued by the end of this year. Peer-reviewed publications are an essential part of marketing. We have enthusiastic early adopters among horse owners, but in order to bring around the veterinarians, the breeders, and the breed societies, we're going to need peer-reviewed publications supporting our work. Okay, so what's the challenge? The biggest challenge right now is communication. My native language is science. Many people, including members of my board, tell me if I go full speed talking science, nobody understands what I'm talking about except other scientists. And our customers are horse people. And A horse has been kind of neglected by science, so there's not a lot of common knowledge of genetics and genomics among horse people, even among some veterinarians. So it's a very difficult communication problem. And I think the solution to this ultimately is to recruit people from within the horse industry, that is companies who have sold things to horse people, and get them on our board. And one of those people is probably going to make a good CEO, because I am not the person to explain this stuff to horse people. So that's our challenge going forward. So I've told you how we've exploited the revolution in genetics to address the under-researched field of horse. I've shown you that it's really easy to bring tests to market because genetic testing of non-human animals is non-regulated. I've told you we're coming up on two big milestones: first patent issuance and first peer-reviewed publication. And we're going to continue to work for horse owners who want better horses. Watch us in the future. We're EquiSeq, the future of horses. Glad to take any questions.
So if you're going to come up here and do questions, this is how it works. Paul is going to stand up here, and we've got this microphone thing, which creates news habits. So we can do this passing back and forth thing, and that can create some interesting sounds. So you might want to pay attention to where the microphone is in relation to your face. There's a star here, which seems to be irrelevant at the moment. Here you go. All right, so you come up here and talk to Paul here, with a nice distance and saying hi and conversationally. If you're online, this is a question I've got. Laura or Sonia?
I'm watching the chat.
Okay, Laura's gonna be watching the chat and she'll be mentioning who's up next. So
I don't want to take questions yet.
that works out there.
Yeah, you can scroll all the way to the bottom.
Great.
Yeah, you had a couple.
We have some online people.
Okay, great. Here we go.
Can we do an online person? Scroll up. Who's the first there?
Chrissy. Chrissy was the first one to say.
Tell me more about zebrafish.
Yes.
Thank you, Chrissy. All right, tell me more about zebrafish, she says. Okay, I will. That's a zebrafish. They're one of a few things that are designated as model organisms. So fruit flies, yeast, Xenarhabditis, zebrafish all have specific roles in basic biological research, and these guys are really handy to work with. Okay, I told you that all living things are related. The problem with myosin 3, the gene affected by P4, is there are no human diseases associated with mutations in myosin 3 yet. So there's nothing in humans. There's no study in mouse yet. So there's no information on what happens when myosin 3 is not expressed in an embryo. So we went to zebrafish because it's cheap and fast. So does everybody know how genes work? They're made out of DNA. There's DNA there. DNA is archival. It's copied into something called RNA. It looks kind of like DNA. The RNA is used as instructions to synthesize proteins. Proteins are really important. Everything important that a cell does is done by a protein. So we are able to do what's called an RNA knockdown. You can take out a protein by targeting the RNA. So antisense RNA, the complement to the RNA, is made. The cell doesn't like double-stranded RNA and it destroys it. And so that protein and no other protein is not made. All the other proteins are made normally. So what happens when you use antisense against myosin 3 in zebrafish?
I'm on it. I'm on it. Right here.
That's the construct, doesn't matter. Go next. This is what happens. These embryos were injected with antisense to myosin 3 as a control. You see that they're unable to complete development because their muscles are exhibiting contractures. If the dose of antisense RNA is lowered to allow some myosin 3 expression and escapers, they have exercise-induced defects in muscle. You can see that this zebrafish that was knocked down and exercised has these gaps indicated by the white arrows, so its muscles are coming apart when it's exercised. This is the first demonstration that myosin 3 is required for muscle development and function in zebrafish. What's next? That's not the perfect experiment. The perfect experiment is to replicate the horse mutation in zebrafish, not take the gene out completely, but use CRISPR to edit the zebrafish DNA to induce the horse mutation. That'll make a mutant RNA, that'll make a mutant protein, and then we have precisely replicated the defect in zebrafish. And that's what we're going to do. Thanks for asking.
Jason, you're up next. And this is driving me crazy.
Yeah. It's a scalpel. It's all right.
Yeah, let's just leave it on the floor.
I don't have slides for the other questions.
Jason for Basin College Photography. Paul, I've seen most of your presentations. I really like this updated one. I really felt it was much more approachable to the audience here, and I got a lot more out of it than I think your previous ones. So great job on that update to the presentation. My question is it known what % of current adult horses might have this genetic muscle defect?
So it varies from one breed to the other. So the first thing to tell you is that horses are very highly inbred. There are, if you look at, lineages for quarter horses, it is not uncommon to see stallions mated with their daughters. It's not uncommon to see the same stallion in the top and bottom that is in the maternal and paternal line of a pedigree. So things, marriages that would be illegal among humans are routine among horse. And the consequence of that is there's a high incidence of late onset disease. So if there's an early onset disease and the horse is useless when it's born, people kind of know that and they're not going to breed the horse. But if the horse falls apart when it's 7 years old or 10 years old, there's no real selection at it because that horse may have been sold a couple of times in between. So that's the background to what might the incidence be in a particular breed. And in quarter horses, it looks like, maybe 11 to 15% of quarter horses are affected with this muscle disease. And you see this as gait abnormalities. Not everyone has symptoms as severe as Carlo, but so there's a range of defects. We know some environmental factors that induce symptoms in these horses, but it's actually a very high percentage because of the inbreeding and the tolerance of late onset defects.
Oh, quick follow-up. So
Sure.
This industry is totally unregulated horses.
Right.
Is this like the only large farmish animal that's not
No,
regulated?
all non-human animals, genetic testing is not regulated. So if you want to give a drug or give a medical device to an animal, USDA regulates all that. But if you want to pull hair or blood and analyze DNA, there's no rules on what you can test for and what you can't.
Come on up, and we're gonna do an online person next, and then you'll be up.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So that was really awesome to learn something new. I wouldn't have ever thought of what you're doing. My question is, what is one core belief of yours around growth and development?
Do you mean like my personal growth and development, or as a biologist using that term?
As a person, like how it might relate to someone like me.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the problem with general questions like that, I know what my journey has been. And Sun Tzu teaches us to know the enemy and to know yourself, right? And knowing yourself is the hard part. So I'm going to kind of break the code here that guys have. And I'm going to tell women, in case they don't know, that guys have a lot of trouble asking for help. So it's taken us a while because I get to the point where it's desperate, everything's on fire. And I reach out to some member of the community I think might be helpful. And they're like, oh man, I've been waiting to talk to you. And they just throw themselves into it. They don't want money. They don't want equity. They just want to be helpful, right? So a core belief is to know yourself, I would say, because whatever your limitations are, inability to ask for help or ask for directions, right? Mm-hmm. That could be one of them. And you just have to overcome it. Like the goal that you're looking at is much more important than your embarrassment if somebody says no to you, or how you feel about revealing your vulnerabilities. I mean, what am I doing here, right? I don't know anything about horses. I tell people that. People say, you work with horses all your life. I'm like, no, I don't know anything about it. It's a mammal. I know the genome, but I kind of know one end from the other, but that's where it stops. So that's why we need horse people to communicate with horse people. So you have to accept your limitations and say, look, I could spend a year trying to learn how to be a horse person, but they'd still spot me as someone who doesn't know horses. So why should I do that? We should bring on people who understand that, and they should do the talking for me, right? So does that help?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
All right, Wendy, you're up next. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask us the question. Ask Paul the question.
You can go to people now if you want. Everyone's seen that.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm sorry, I tuned in a little bit late, but I just want to know, I saw your part about the 3 components of what you need, and the first was sales and patents, and you mentioned that you had 2 patents and I think a third one pending. But as far as sales go, at this point, Is anything available to horse owners, or how far away are we from that?
Oh, yeah. So we had our first sales in 2017. So since the market is unregulated, as soon as we had tests, we introduced them to the public. And so since we've been selling since then. Is your question quantitative?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the rest of that.
Is your question quantitative? Are you asking us what our sales are?
I'm sorry, I've got a bad connection, so I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later about
that the test is currently available to horse owners, and their horses will be tested for 6 variants.
Okay, great. And the cost?
Thanks for showing up.
The cost on this?
Is $299. So that's the market rate. So the market rate for a genetic test is about $50 per variant. And we know that across the horse industry. So that's the price that the market will bear. So that's what we set our price at.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, wait. He was next, actually. Sorry.
Stand away back there.
Hi, Paul. I'm Michael Herrick with HIPAA for Humans. I help health technology startup founders navigate the HIPAA compliance maze. Paul, can you share with us a little bit about what's your current marketing pitch to horse owners? And it kind of sounds like it's challenging. I mean, there's not a cure, right? You can't fix horses. So the benefit is really downstream. It's really the next generation of horses where the benefits start coming. So tell us about your marketing pitch currently.
Well, right now, the marketing pitch is that we understand that horses are bred deliberately, right? Approximately 100% of the matings in horse are deliberate matings. So what that means, and the generation time, of course, is shorter than for humans. So what that means is people are driving horse breeding, and they see what happens to these horses, and over time it can be bred out. Now it's not a simple case of let's just euthanize every horse that has any of these variants, because horses are already highly inbred. There are some endangered breeds that were started from a couple dozen founders and have no input from the outside. So they're already highly inbred. That's a very dangerous situation. So we don't advocate removing individuals from the breeding pool. We advocate using our tests and perhaps additional tests to figure out what the best breedings are. And the most spectacular example of that is outside of horse. Does anybody know what a kakapo is? A flightless parrot? It's an endangered parrot in New Zealand. They're flightless, so things that invade the island will eat them. They tried, when they set out to rescue them, they had about 100 individuals, and they did whole genome sequencing on all of them. So that is the first species where every individual was sequenced. Human is not on the list, right? So they did that to maximize genetic diversity when starting from a limited pool. Horse people are not doing that. It's clear from a recent publication that if something doesn't change, thoroughbreds are basically going extinct. And Secretariat set the record at the Belmont in 1973. As far as I'm concerned, if something doesn't change in the thoroughbred industry, the record will never be broken. All right, so.
Jay Pullen, Albuquerque Hypnotherapy. And first of all, I've got to say thank you to whoever came up with this PA system. It's making a big difference for me. So my stepdaughter has done a little bit of breeding, and as soon as she retires from her current job, which will be next year, I imagine she'll be getting into it a little more. But I'm a little curious about the mechanism, the turnaround time and so forth, because sometimes she might buy a horse 500 miles away. So she's got to drive over there and look over the horse. What would be the best mechanism for her to make sure the horse is a safe purchase?
Sure. So we get that all the time. A lot of people who've had experience with these horses never want another one again. So they use our test as part of a pre-purchase exam. And what they do is email us that something's coming by overnight mail. We get it the next day, we get it to the lab facility, and we can get results back to people in 5 or 6 days if they let us know it's coming and that it's for a pre-purchase exam. And that's for $300, no extra charge to make sure that it glides through the system quickly. And a lot of people have done that. Sometimes when we do that, the breeder gets told by the person, I don't want this horse because of this. And they say, what are you talking about? So we're starting to work with some breeders who've decided to take the hit and clean up their entire herd. Now, they're not going to get an economic benefit right away, but eventually those horses are going to sell at a premium because they're clean.
I'm Clifton Chadwick, Comunicaciones Cocopelli. You know, Paul, when you first presented this, I think I saw it 10 years ago at least or something like that. And I remember thinking you're going to have a heck of a time because sellers do not want to disclose the defects of their product.
Yes, they do.
So, you know, hats off for your tenacity. But I learned today you're not a horse person. So are you doing this for the horses? Or are you doing this to demonstrate broader technological capability?
Wow, that's a complex question. So we'll get into the part of the origin that I didn't disclose, which was that I wanted to get into the ABQID accelerator. And the company that I was operating at the time was not going to get into the accelerator because it was a DNA sequencing technology company, had massive capital expenditures, and we were competing with Illumina, the 800-pound gorilla. So everybody correctly assessed that this would be a very uphill battle, not worthy of someone who had never been an entrepreneur before. So we needed another business model. We put a bunch of smart people in a room for 4 2-hour sessions every week. And about halfway through, we were looking for an opportunity in genomics that had no regulation, so everything human was out, a niche market, so the big boys weren't interested, and a social barrier to entry, which horse certainly is. So, and that would keep a big company from operating. And we were surprised, and I was surprised as anybody when the market that emerged was horse. I thought it might be something in agriculture, but I didn't understand it would be horse. So I said, this is the opportunity. We looked at dog, but there's a company that's funded by 23andMe, which is Google money, that was doing dog called Embark. And we're like, okay, we're not going to be able to compete with dog except for something highly specialized that we worked on for a while and dropped. So it was going to be horse. And the challenge is talking to the people, as I've said, right? And so the big companies don't want to do that. We do. And things are going quite well in Germany because of our licensee Generatio. So we see the path to marketing, but I did not start out as a horse person. I started out as a genomics person, and we wanted an opportunity in genomics that would work for a startup. And that's what this is.
Okay, so I will watch out your foot. I want to point out how important your tests are, because as you can see, these 2 posts, my horse isn't tested yet, but she started showing MIM symptoms at 7. Her inbreeding coefficient is 4.75. Catherine says, I have a 6-year-old TB that has been suffering from recurrent RER episodes. So.
Right, it's all over the place. So when I describe the symptoms or show the video to some quarter horse breeder that has 100 horses or so, they say, oh, that. And I went to the Alcamsa convention in 2019. That's Arabian horse breeders, a special subset of Arabians. And they had an arena show where they would roll out one horse and there's a caller sort of reciting all the high points of this horse's pedigree and all his famous ancestors. And I realized while the horse was walking that I had stood up because I could see the gait abnormalities. And the person next to me said, what's wrong? And I said, look what's going on with that horse's hind legs. And she says, yeah, that's screwed up, right? And then a couple of horses later, another horse came on like that. Again, same thing, going on and on about the wonders of this horse's pedigree. And the woman sitting next to me said, this one too. And I said, yes. And so it's common, and people have all kinds of excuses for it. Oh, that breeds like that. Oh, they're all a little like that. You just handle them this way and they'll be okay. Or on good days, they're really good. On bad days, you lose. And they accept this because there's been very little science done in horse. There are a handful of academic equine researchers, and we know them, right? Some of them like us, some of them hate us. And but they'll put on their CVs when they get a $20,000 grant, right? And in human genetics, that's a joke, right? So to put it another way, when we started, there were tests for over 5,000 inherited conditions in humans, and there were tests for 16 in horse. So we could start anywhere. So yeah, these are common diseases, and people tolerate it because no one's been by to help them. And when someone does show up to help them, well, it's not that friendly on Facebook. That's all I can say.
So you've said many times that the breeders don't like the test.
Mm-hmm.
thing that kind of occurs to me, and especially if you're going after more diseases, is some genetic things are both parents have to have a common gene, and some are one parent. Would the breeders be more interested in filtering out on first A/B thing so that they could say, never breed this horse with this horse, or this is a horse that's going to produce 30% bad, ill horses? Have you gone after that kind of market? And what lessons have you learned in all of the sales, and who won't buy your stuff, and the failed assumptions like the breeders will love this?
Yeah.
What have you learned that you'll go on for the next disease?
Yeah, okay, I've learned a number of things. So let me take one of the worst examples I can think of, something called fragile foal syndrome, which is a lot worse than it sounds. This is a straight up embryonic or perinatal lethal. It's impossible to survive this. It's a defect in a collagen modifying enzyme. Collagen is the major protein that holds your body together. So if these horses don't fail development, when they're born, they just tear apart and you get a pile of organs. So that is absolutely lethal, but it's recessive. Okay, so both parents have to be carriers. There's a 25% chance that they will give rise to that foal. So in certain breeds, like if you're going to breed a mare to a stallion, so stallions tend to go around and have lots of mares, and you test your mare and your mare is negative for fragile foal syndrome, you're okay even if the stallion's positive, right? The genes that we picked in human beings, defects in these genes are semi-dominant. So Carlo has muscle disease, even though he only has one copy of this. So one copy of some of these is enough, and we know that from human studies and from mouse. So we have gone after the things that interact where one copy is bad enough and two copies are worse. The straight up lethals, the breed organizations are kind of aware of that, and they encourage testing because it's a big, if for leaving the heartbreak out of it, gestation in horses 13 months and all that care and veterinary care, and then it gives birth to a pile of organs, and you really don't want that. So yeah, so I think it's going to take peer-reviewed publications, pressure on breeders. In Europe, they've been more successful at doing that than we have because we've been like, we need peer-reviewed publications, and they're like, no, full speed ahead. And a bunch of German warm blood associations have got together, and they are doing our tests on all German warm bloods that are being evaluated at 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, there is awareness growing, but every day is hand-to-hand combat in the marketplace to make breeders, because you're talking about money. Right? So are you going to spend extra money to avoid something that not everybody considers to be a problem at this time? So that's the difficulty, is convincing people, yes, it is a problem. And Christine has done a wonderful job doing that.
I'm Dr. Norm with Dr. Norm's Connections. I'm in the dementia prevention business. Has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but there is some genetic things with dementia, but that's besides the point. You have a very cerebrally stimulating presentation here. Very. And my question may be so far off the mark I should leave and not come back, but let me just tell you what I'm thinking in the way for you to market. And I'm assuming, if I got this correct, you have a diagnostic test. You want to get that out. Okay. So my daughter works for a company called TRICARE. Or Tricor. And she told me that companies come in and they give Tricor all this data and all these diagnostic machines and everything so that any doctor or any medical provider can ship this to the company, and then they can send the test out right away. I'm just wondering, this is thinking way outside the box, and it may not be profitable to begin with, but if you were to take that diagnostic test, give it to a company like that or Quest, and say, look, would you guys do this? It'll speed things up, maybe, and somehow do the marketing so that people know that it's out there, and this company here, Quest or Tricor, can take care of it. Is that something you thought about, or is that way beyond my skill set in asking that question?
That's a good idea. And I say that's a good idea because we have thought about it and we've looked into it. So the Tricor would like to do high volume tests, right? So during COVID, they were not interested in talking to anybody else. They were calling labs at UNM to say, do you have any TAC polymerase? And they were just looting UNM for supplies to do polymerase chain reactions so they could do COVID tests. So they weren't looking for new customers. There's a certain volume that they would expect, and we're not at that volume yet. So when we achieve that volume, I think a lab like Tricor might be interested. That would be helpful. The lab doing our test now is in Texas, so there's a delay to FedEx things to them. I'd love to have Tricor do the test, but they're or Quest or somebody local, but it's going to take some time and volume. Another thing we've looked into on the excellent advice of Eric Lee Smith is looking into international markets. Now, we have granted an exclusive license to the EU and UK for our test to Generatio, but South America, Japan, other countries are way open. It wouldn't be any problem translating our website into Spanish and marketing in Spain. I'd prefer Spain. In Latin America, I would prefer that we had a testing facility somewhere there. So maybe I should talk to you about where are the DNA testing labs in South America? Do we have anything in Mexico? Because the problem of shipping things across international borders is difficult, especially when it's horse. And the USDA says, you can't send a hair sample, so we have to use blood cards, all that stuff. So it would be great to set up operations in South America, again, when volume is larger.
Well, I'm Sonia Doing, CEO of Women's Thriller Writers Association, and
TV star.
TV star, yeah. I have a suggestion. So number one, I think you are the perfect CEO because number one, you are completely aware that there is a language barrier and you're also working on it. You're going to all these events, you're talking to people, you're super friendly. People love you, right? So I think what you need is a good writer. Because a good writer would get to know your audience, would get to know their terminology and where they're coming from, and get to know your technology and write the content that attracts that audience for you. So I think that's my suggestion. That's where you need to go.
That's a great idea. What I did mention, so Christine, and there are other people like her who are brand evangelists who've started websites and awareness about the disease, promoting testing. Some groups have set up groups like that outside of the breed societies for particular breeds, and they're posting genetic tests for individuals and looking at pedigrees and saying, boy, you might want to avoid this stallion. Or at least make sure you get both horses tested before you breed in this breed, because this is common. So we already have people making that pitch to some extent, and we are learning from them. So Generatio has done a fantastic job of talking to German vets and getting in the German horse magazines. They were actually instrumental in getting our patent through because you have to prove novelty and utility. Novelty was pretty easy. Utility, you have to show people understand this test and they're using it. And much of that information came from Germany. So we just have to replicate what they did over there, and we'd be doing it over here. There's complicated reasons why we didn't do that. And thank you for your compliment on my being the perfect CEO. The problem is, like most scientists, I'd rather be in a science lab talking to other scientists 100% of the time. And I don't like, pushing financial data through spreadsheets or trying to explain to people why, the report that they asked for 12 hours ago isn't done, even though it's 20 pages, right? I mean, so there's a lot of stuff about being a CEO that's not fun. And the other thing about it is, maybe this would change your mind. If we had a CEO from an equine company that had an exit, right, then boom, right? Katie barred the door. So that's what anybody with the credentials, like they sold the company, right? That's our CEO, because that's where we're going to go, right? And money people understand people who have had an exit, and people who have not, they're like, you're taking a gamble on this person.
That helps too, right? You're not just looking for someone who knows the language.
No. We need somebody that checks all the boxes, and our board knows what they are.
Well, I'm here for, as you know, the last two questions. And I really think that was neat how you came back to the problem that you're really trying to solve and really ran it home. That was really great. So red or green?
Wow, this is a hard question for people who live here. Let me pick my favorite thing with red, which is carne adobado. And generally, I'm a green guy. Green ought to be put on everything, maybe not on ice cream. But green chili chicken enchiladas with blue corn tortillas, that's the ultimate green, right? But asking red or green, it's like, who do you love more, your mother or your father? Come on.
So with that context, how can this community help you?
Wow, what you can help me do is connect me with people in the horse community that have experience in horse companies. I mean, they want to talk to other horse people, but you know, you look out here and there's people that have a second or third way connection to horse people. So if you can introduce us to somebody who's worked in the horse industry, sold things to horse people and wants to talk to us, boy, that would be the perfect outcome for having pitched at 1 Million Cups, presented 1 Million Cups, sorry.
Thank you, Paul. So just say no. Okay, what was that again?
It's a scalpel.
Just say no. Scalpel. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is the part of 1 Million Cups where we have like little events. We talk about events, but then we also have something that kind of involves the group. And so today we have a lot of new folks, and some of you I prepared for this moment, and some of you I have not. But if you are new, this is a great time to build your rapport and maybe even your stage fright. So come on up and introduce yourselves. Come and make a line right over here, just like the people that we're giving questions at. And you're gonna come up and tell us just kind of your name and a little bit about what your business does. And I'll likely come and bother you if I know you're new anyway. So you might as well just come up right now. It's great. Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
make them come up
There we go.
there.
No, I'm not going to make them. I would just continue to, stand by them and make.
I'm Hillary Savage. This is my first time joining for 1 Million Cups. I run a small research company here in Albuquerque, and we build magnetic resonance systems for custom applications. So that's often MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, for applications like imaging plant roots, or detecting uranium enrichment, or detecting pollution in the Arctic under 1 to 2 meters of sea ice, with a system slung under a helicopter. So we do magnetic resonance of all sorts of applications. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and meet you guys.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Adam, for the opportunity. Paul, it was a wonderful presentation, quite insightful. But unlike Paul, my native language is marketing. I'm from Namibia. It's a country in Africa. It's very close to South Africa. Most of the people, what I've noticed here, most of the people are aware of South Africa. So we are like 14 hours drive to South Africa. Very similar in terms of infrastructure, the restaurants and all that basically. So yeah, I work as a professor back home in my home country at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. And I'm also the head of department for the marketing, logistics and sports management department. So I basically oversee 3 sections. I'm here as a Fulbright visiting scholar doing my postdoctorate. And I remember that when I started the first meeting that I had with one of my mentors, he was looking at me, or it was a Zoom meeting. So he was looking at me and he was like zooming into my face, and I started being a bit uncomfortable. So I asked him, is there a problem? He was like, it's your accent. I'm trying to reach your lips so I can just make out what you're saying. So if you can't make out what I'm saying, please do read my lips. So I'm here with my daughters. They are 18 and 19 years old. They are at Albuquerque High School. I just thought that it would be nice for them to have some sort of exposure to the various cultures and also to improve their language, the English language, obviously. So I thought it would be nice for me to put them in school. So we are going to be here until end of October. I came with Athena. She invited me to this platform. She just thought it's going to be a wonderful platform for me to get to network and also to identify business that I can perhaps establish back home. I love it. I love it here so far. People are quite friendly and welcoming, and I'm hoping that I won't be entrapped in the land of entrapment. Thank you.
Everyone, we are here together. I'm Jeff. I'm Abby.
And we're with Arts Hub, and we are nonprofit and small business consulting. So what I do with that is I help nonprofits write and research grants, do fundraising. I also help small businesses write proposals, as well as data collection and data analysis and strategic development for nonprofits. And Abby.
My brain just wiped. I am social media and communications.
Yeah, so this is my second time here, and yeah, thank you all so much. It was a really wonderful presentation. And yeah, if you know any small businesses or nonprofits who need support in their development, give us a call.
Everybody's been sharing my writer's stuff, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm Frankie Emusio. I am about 21 days in as a business development consultant thank you, for the New Mexico Angels. I have a 15-year history in marketing and prop tech for commercial real estate. So a completely new world for me. Venture capital and angel investing. I came to watch one of our portfolio companies, which is Paul, and I'm definitely going to come back. This was amazing, learning technology and learning new companies. So thank you for having me. I had a great time.
My name is Peter Davenport. I am currently an academic at UNM, working in bioengineering, genetic engineering, molecular biology. It relates to some of the stuff that Paul was talking about. And it sounds like I'm in a position maybe Paul was a few years back, where I enjoyed academic research. I did a bit of private consultancy as well. I'm looking to move into more of a business environment and trying to coming here to get some ideas, try to meet people, try to maybe get involved in something a bit more entrepreneurial, something that will have a bit of a different kind of impact that my academic research has had. So yeah, that's me.
How's it going? My name is Curtis Breitner, Executive Director at Nonprofit Epilepsy Research Association here in Albuquerque. We'll be having a fundraiser. It'll be a kickball tournament with Radio Center the weekend of October 14th. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. And that starts off our talking about events. And Sonia wanted to do this part.
I did.
Yeah, I appreciate her.
All right. Well,
I'm just gonna read what's on the piece of paper. Right, we have Founders Syndicate of events, we have Founders to Founders Hike. Oh, that's past, right? Okay, yeah, today's the 28th, dang it. So other events, yes, that's past. Oh yeah, New Mexico Small Business Assistance Technical Help Workshop, June 29th from 11:30 to 12:30 at the Bioscience Center. And you can find that, go to Eventbrite and just search New Mexico Small Business Assistance. You should be able to find the link to that. Allerpops is having their big celebration right here at Fat Pipe. So if you don't know Allerpops, Cliff, who might still be online, I did see him drop in online. But he's published a book. He's got Allerpops, which help reduce your allergy symptoms, which is awesome. If you want to come, and make sure to look up this event and register, because Fat Pipe needs to order enough food. I want to come and be able to eat food, so everybody register. And that is July 12th from 5 to 7. Does anybody else here or online have an event that they'd like to share? And if you're online, feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, somebody's coming up.
Hey guys, I'm Brian Steiner. I own Noventum Custom Software Development. I can stand on the star. And we offer a WordPress work along the third Tuesday of each month at Ideas and Coffee from 5:30 to 7:30. So if you have a WordPress site, you're not quite at the point where you're ready to sign a contract, but you need some help, come and get some free help.
Thanks for the donuts. All right, so it looks like that is what we've got for that. So usually this is the part where Paul comes up and closes us out, but you got to talk a lot. Do you want to come up and close us up too?
If I could show another 10 slides, yeah.
That's good.
No, I can close it up. Let Sonia do it.
Right.
On TV.
I know, right? I did not expect to be on the news yesterday. All right, so in a good way. But, well, thank you everyone for coming. As you can see, this is a great crowd, a great supportive group of people in this audience. If you have questions, if you have issues with your business, if you need help, ask the person next to you. They probably know someone who can help. Please come back next week. We're here every single Wednesday, and invite someone to come with you, and let's keep growing this audience. So thank you, everybody. Have a good day.